Deputy Higgins. Now, could I have a bit of order for Deputy Higgins?
We're
not short of comedians, you're dead right. Or so-called comedians. Go on. Thank you, Deputy Higgins.
Taoiseach, did the Cabinet today decide to close down 4 army barracks in Clonmel, Mullingar, Castlebar and Cavan? And what is the rationale for this proposal when there are no savings in financial terms to the state? But for the 600 or so soldiers and their families, most of whom are indeed workers in uniform, ordinary rank and file soldiers, this would be an enormous ordeal, forcing them to uproot adults and children, move to different towns and cities. You can imagine the hardship for younger soldiers with families with mortgages and homes in negative equity, the uprooting of children from schools, the uprooting of settled families from their extended or members from their extended families and communities. But the economic dislocation to the towns concerned, particularly Mullingar, Clonmel and Cavan, with roughly 200 soldiers each and families, will be considerable. Now, in Clonmel, PD4, the soldiers' organisation, estimate a loss of €9 or €10 million a year. And that's a loss to shops and restaurants, small enterprises, trades, and it's equivalent to a small-size factory or workplace closing down. And because there are no economic benefits to the state, there's no savings, because moving the soldiers and family will mean refurbishment and extensive cost and other costs. What's the point when you're hitting the same domestic economy as your general austerity policy? Now, Taoiseach, there are local campaigns in these towns of soldiers, their families, friends, community.
We have a question, please, Deputy.
In the likes of Clonmel, Deputy Healy and the Tipperary Workers' Group and United Left have correctly examined the situation and are absolutely opposed. And maybe in the case of Clonmel, Taoiseach, you could take a lesson from history. Some time ago, even Cromwell was persuaded not to lose destruction on that particular town after the opposition of Éadó O'Neill and his soldiers and citizens. But speaking of Mullingar, have you lost a soldier of some rank over this today, Taoiseach? Has the Minister of State at the Department of the Environment, Deputy Penrose, tendered his resignation over the closure of these barracks and the dislocation to the families, and have you accepted it? And will you reconsider that decision now?
Thank you. Taoiseach?
First of all, Deputy, I can confirm to you that Government have made a decision arising from a report prepared by the Chief of Staff for the Minister for Defence in respect of the closure of the 4 barracks that you mentioned. This is to do with consolidation of the Defence forces into fewer locations arising from the evacuation of these 4 barracks. There will be, in addition to the 515 military personnel, a total of 25 civilian personnel will be transferred to the new locations. I point out to you, Deputy, that this is not the same as Aviva or Talk, where jobs are lost and where there's a resultant move to social protection. No job is being lost here, and there is a transfer of the Defence Forces, Defence Force personnel, of whom we're very proud of the job that they do in respect of this country, both nationally and internationally. The fact of the matter is that the location of personnel in a large number of locations has been a major difficulty in the provision of essential training, of safeguarding the barracks in question, and the additional costs that are imposed on it. In fact, Deputy, if you look at the areas where barracks have closed over the last 10 or 15 years, the economic consequence has not been, as you say, but that personnel have not moved from a barracks that has been closed to a receiving barracks, and the local economy is still the beneficiary of the wages and salaries of personnel defence in the area in which they are in the first place. In response to your last question, I can confirm to you that I have received, with regret indeed, a letter of resignation from the Minister of State at Housing, Minister of State Willie Penrose.
Deputy Higgins, 1 minute. Thank you.
Well, Taoiseach, I'm afraid that it is a situation similar to the closure of workplaces like Talk or Viva, perhaps not to the same scale. But in many cases, families will be obliged to move. Otherwise, there's a commuting distance of hours every day.
Sorry, would you please allow the Deputy make his point? He's only got 1 minute, would you please?
Well,
thank you.
I wonder, would the Deputy...
Don't mind the interruptions, Deputy. Would you just put your question? Thank you.
They're the ones who are interrupted.
That's what I said. Don't mind the interruptions. Exactly.
I think it's quite callous, Count Corlea, for members of Fine Gael to dismiss the concerns of soldiers and their families in this particular way. And from a certain way of life, to be forced to commute, for example, 3 hours a day, which would be the case in some of the soldiers, that's an intolerable change in conditions. Now, Taoiseach, how can you say that jobs won't be lost when people have to move, and therefore those in the local economy who are dependent on this, in services, local services in the domestic economy, of course they will suffer, and it provides a major dislocation. And what is the rationale when you cannot even argue that there are economic benefits to it? Now, the fact that Deputy Penrose has resigned, is this giving you and the Labour Party pause for thought?
Thank you.
Deputy Penrose goes back to my own days in the Labour Party, which is almost further ago than I can remember. So obviously he has a big history there and has to take it very seriously. And what position does it put the dozens of new Labour deputies in? Are they prepared to sit here and to see soldiers and towns and local economies destroyed in this way?
Thank you.
So I'm asking you to reconsider this situation.
Thank you.
And again, what is the rationale when you cannot even use an economic argument?
Taoiseach, 1 minute.
I disagree with you fundamentally. As I said, the Óglaigh na hÉireann, the Irish Army, have been proud defenders of our country, both at home and abroad. The situation here is that the savings involved here will be of the order of 5 million, with efficiencies of about 1.3 million per year. But it also means that it releases personnel for operational duties, which are of a fundamental importance to the Army. Now, I know that you're speaking for Deputy Healy because you don't allow him to speak as part of your group at all in the first place. The proceeds of the sale of the barracks, it's like the captain and the private over there. You don't even allow him to speak in your party, whatever you call it. The proceeds from the sale of the barracks will be used to fund the upgrading of defence force equipment and infrastructure. For your information, since 1998, 10 barracks were closed under 2 barrack consolidation programmes. A total of 85 million was realised from the disposal of 6 of these barracks. And the proceeds from the sale of these 4 barracks, or the disposal of these, will go for infrastructure and investment in the Army. As you know, the government are anxious to maintain the strength of the Army at operational level. I can confirm to you that there is an allowance, a travelling expense allowance payable for 9 months to personnel who move to a new barracks. And if they decide to relocate after that, there is a relocation expense. The vast majority don't do that, and for those who do not avail of the travelling allowance, Deputy, the Army supply transport for their personnel.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
So I might say to you that this is part of a whole series of reforms which the government have to undertake in order to rectify this fact that we're spending 18 billion more than we're taking in. There are some very difficult decisions to be taken in the time ahead, Deputy. You will decry all of them, but believe you me, these decisions are made in the best interests of our country.
Thank you.
I commend Minister of State Penrose for his activities as Minister for Housing in making constructive propositions and in making difficult decisions. And I can understand any deputy having to make a decision like he made. But this is a case of where Cabinet has to make decisions, and that's our job. The mandate that we're given is to sort out the problems of this country, and that's what we intend to do.
Thank you, Taoiseach. That completes leaders' questions for